this intentional fallacy and affective fallacy were published as articles in the late 40s by Wimsatt and Beardsley, Monroe C. Beardsley and W.K. Wimsatt. So in these two things, they laid down the definitive principles of new criticism, and these were later published as an independent book, parts of an independent book called The Verval Icon, dated 1954. In the year 1954, I repeat, The Verval Icon by Wimsatt and Beardsley were published. In that, this earlier published article of intentional fallacy as well as the one on affective fallacy were also collected. Intentional fallacy, fallacy is mistake and erroneous judgment. The intentional fallacy, according to Wimsatt and Beardsley, is the wrong reading of a literary work based on its author's intention. We often encounter such statements in traditional criticism. For example, in such and such a novel, say Hard Times, Dickens achieved his intention of showing the exploitation of the working class fully. But how do you actually know that it was Dickens's intention? He has not written a separate letter or other thing to insist on that. Sometimes the authors may write also, but according to Wimsatt and Beardsley, we should not take them into account. For example, Bernard Shaw. Before his plays start, there are 30 to 40 pages of introduction, sometimes even more, where George Bernard Shaw himself gives the theory of what he is trying to achieve there. This is one but according to new critics, even if such things are there, we should not take them into account and rather focus on the text itself. Read the text as closely as possible and concentrating on this verbal structure. That is why it is called the verbal icon. So they say that the the design or intention of the author is neither available nor desirable as a standard for judging the success of a work of literary art. That is the key statement. It's diametrically opposed to, as I said, the things that we commonly say that in such and such a novel, Tagore or Dickens or Hardy achieved his such and such intention to the fullest extent. That's actually a mistake, basically, that we do according to Wimsatt and Beardsley. So related to that is the concept of affective fallacy. From affective fallacy, that is to judge a literary work by taking into account its effects on the reader or on the audience. In this way, if we talk about catharsis, that Aristotle's pointing out of the psychological effect of a play on the audience, so that will be a wrong standard of studying the play according to the new critics, because catharsis is basically related to the result of the play on the audience, which according to them we should not take into account, according to Wimsatt and Beardsley. So just as we should not think about what was the author's intention in writing the particular text, we also should not judge the text by its effects on the readers, emotional effect, etc. So such and such book has been read by 10,000 authors, so it is better than a book read by 5,000 authors, to give a crude example. So those kinds of things cannot be the standards of judgment for critics. So the standard of judgment is again a close reading of the text itself. So I think these two are quite important concepts, and perhaps we see the full maturity of this concept later with Rolla Barthes' The Death of the Author, and then the subsequent explication of Foucault of the same concept in What is an Author. on that we'll talk in separate videos. So what I am trying to say in this, as well as in my previous video on new criticism, there is a continuum between new criticism and post-structuralism, no direct link. Yes, post-structuralists are more influenced by formalism actually, because they were not insiders to much new criticism, being French origin and all. But as we also have said, formalism and new criticism have certain very shared patterns, focusing on the text that you have, its structures, its ironies, its metaphors and all these things, the verbal artifact, rather than going back to the history of the age or the writer's background, the poet's mind, or its effects on the reader. So that in brief is intentional fallacy and affective fallacy. These are fallacies to be avoided, I repeat, according to new critics. Thank you.